Hello, Americans. This video is about you guys, how they get away with using you as a volume remotely by using you as for all our forced natural differences, pretended other, specifically to force debate, fight, and pretended legitimate uses also of the branches of government individually grouped in together since founding. Their difference was nothing. It was collusion. Excuse me, people. It was collusion slash S with a breaching method that employed. It propagated individual grouped and together needs impositions upon human fact, human nature, quality aspects in nature. Therefore, upon you know, as what is to, from, as, with, and for syntax, the human syntax nature, effectively maintains self-value, currently foreign influence, criminal insidiousness natures of wrongdoing, of wrongdoers, where and how that is self-value, where and how with logic, debate, and the recognition of positive or negative is appreciated. One of the ways to discern it is to discern this is how people with passions and emotions pretend to care about the Constitution unabridged, but then get away. Also, how they get away with simultaneously pretending other, as we know since founding, with black people's rights of eyes. The fact that is never brought up that we have these natural answers to answer our questions will cause slavery. Through our schools, other is measured and maintained. There are recorded uses of truths for lies. For example, the truth that if someone has no research, that can make something good or bad. But someone with no research could use what we know already and what we know and the relevance, what we know also about the relevance of what we don't know. In other words, when people make mistakes about black or white, as they've done, because the other is being communicated, then our founders communicated for us to communicate about how black and white was used. And that communication entails explaining simply about how the other founders, they had to counter extort the other founders, how they were still entrenched with roles, with a sick slavery method against everyone, sickly distinctly too, because it would measure and maintain that way. While nature was demonstrating negative value, nature progressions, acts, and natures and demonstration of it, and of the breaching method, it was measuring, maintaining those things that it set up, additionally to its own cause, for people to blame other things, others, themselves. And it made them individuals, groups together, like industries' names, the logic behind them, the significance of what they call success, leaving and having left out where our human value nature system, as identities, as names. Therefore, individuals grouped in together now as names, like countries, tactical systems, tactical ulterior, from the one we were forced to entertain while having been sickly distinctly, but each forced sickly distinctly, and the difference of that too, sickly distinctly to hurt everyone, where and how it measured and maintained precedents and statutes and defenses of the syntax of them, relying upon the people of the past too, having blamed other things, others, ourselves. because of where and how their logic is meant. People don't care with passions and emotions about democracy. Then you need to self-value how that is a word used where there is the distinction between the military's reception of the law and of their statutes, and with the interchange of our own. Differentially distinct, but differentially increasingly non-distinctly the complete possession of a human fact-keeping nature breaching method, criminal insidiousness natures of power, criminal insidiousness natures of weakness, definitions because criminal insidiousness natures of simultaneous / hyper simultaneous. Nature shows we have 5 identities of sequence nature. There are simultaneously 5 identities of simultaneous nature. And we have them on both hands. We have 5 fingers on both hands, for example, because nature is constantly demonstrating too how it is distinctly, but it is also non-distinctly all things. And further, how hyper simultaneously additionally. And those are 3 natures of volume, as it's one volume distinct, just like the cell body, cell nucleus, and cell wall / S are manifest, easier to discern as 3 distinct identities of relationship to itself that the identity of the hypersimultaneous has. Where and how nature shows that we are individual names, we are group names, and we are the species names in a system that shows us answers. It is hyper-native. And it is the reason that Native Americans could discern some ways clearer than us. And while simultaneously we could discern some ways clearer than them. That and how we have been separated from the hyper-native system. That one that is led by what really is the cause of and the value / value progression assignment by nature, wanted by nature, not as criminal insidiousness nature, a positive law. Nature shows us that there's difference between criminal insidiousness natures. I'm not even a lawyer. Lawyers have been since founding too, planting evidence as crime scenes / the hypercrime scene, and other motivations that have been apparent have been there. So when people tell them this, they're going to have no one help them if they're wise. Then realize, otherwise, all the help too, they call it ambulance chasers, things like that. All sides with instances reception that are haven't been employed to uses of exceptions in exception nature, to uses of a special addition, the difference, the only increasing value of a special difference, not special difference, special difference. Now, if we're debating, if someone says nature's demonstrations and uses of why we have black pupils and whites of eyes are tactical ulterior from these systems and these voices that and their natures that pretend passions and emotions, they don't believe that our systems are. Well, how would it be nature then? If it was in nature, how would it be? It's only nature as criminal insidiousness nature. Nature shows us if we follow its system and per its use of the difference of each age of fact treatment nature. This method effectively in our faces measures and maintains the smartest, wisest kids. We're going to, and are going to, they adapt to excuse me, they're going to discern the revelation that no person, no human of the species volume wanted to slavery, only rolls with a breaching method, a human fact treatment nature breaching method, not just a physical one, and an identity one simultaneously, three fronts, where and how it knew those three identities of volume where value is nature, where volume equals value as nature slash nature is value, and vice versa simultaneously slash hyper simultaneously. Because the hyper simultaneous comes with its complete volume and the slash, where how our active volume is a quality of diffusion, not as the earth, but semi as it, in other ways, completely as it. But that's only stayed here, not just because of the identity of space slash existence everywhere at once, but also because it's everywhere at once with Earth's a special difference, our special difference, focused here, consciousness. Excuse me. There are 1,095 days in 3 years because our Trinity, where we are only an extent of the complete identity of the hyper simultaneous. So, for example, not just because of how it has our species and other species manifest individuals, groups, and species body. You ever try to chase a bug around the house, and they become like don't know if you're just trying to if you're trying to reach out and make it come on your hand, it's gonna act like just like an animal. It's gonna act different. If you try to go from a distance, even they could see you, and they start acting differently. Consciousness. Excuse me. Consciousness is a course that's other told this breaching method entrenched slavery North and South America. Before America was America, northern colonies and southern colonies through other countries themselves that had already since semi-ancient time had other replaced as their education, even as the words of their founders since, like America's. Other is in place of what they wanted needed to communicate to us. Thank God we have the means to discern that. But per how all formal communications, locations, names, and all informal ones, like at corners of streets, and ties to that, and all along routes. Excuse me. There rose with a simple method that was here since before our founders were born. This designed the suburbs in America, and since before our founders were born, we know it was designed for a torture slavery method, torture slash slavery method. It understood that and how we are a quality of diffusion, and how this is a conversation about how 5 distinct identities of positive are simultaneously positive together or not, and or that is a criminal insidiousness nature of positive. But this being per religion system, for example, where and how religious rights were to defend, where and how the Constitution unabridged is hyperconjunction. It's conjunction slash hyperconjunction. To where and how that too, excuse me, is only capable of being an only increasing identity of volume, greater than and more finite than itself, while not while as itself, and that being completed, for example, by the extent of the discernible. Nature demonstrating us the only increasing value of the discernment of the hyper simultaneous as a distinct identity of simultaneous, shared by, for example, by those three distinct identities of simultaneous nature, being an individual. The grouped differences that go with that, like being a sex, male or female, and how that is different with the different species. We are not being allowed to appreciate this because short words in correlation towards positives, like words like power, words like innocence, words like fragility. Every identity, everything that's positive or negative, has a conjunction to identity. Every identity has conjunction to the hyperconjunction and to the value of the slash that comes with that. This is the value of the discernment of how, including as only as an identity of relationship to itself, it is volume because it is coupled with the quality of our diffusion, and it is simultaneously with the rest of Earth that can't help but have no criminal foreign influences. Mostly, the Earth couldn't help but stay mostly perfect use of Earth's a special difference, of our own a special difference. Even though we would deny it, they're forced away from here, least of Hadith. Worse than death. Heaven and hell are more probably per nature, per science, and honesty properly. It's the only criminal insidiousness natures of honesty treatments and of names treatments came with descriptions of instances relative to where and to how they sense and hurt the kids who are the smartest and wisest, because they're going to use the truths as revelations that, like, for example, how sickly distinctly the Native Americans had sustained against them before our families were born a human fact cheating nature breaching method, that at least they were honest about that. They're differentially through age groupings and descriptions of them. Sometimes they're pretending they believe kids should stay back because of the adaptations manifest, where and how used remotely and having been used remotely. Our own names at every modern country's name, at their locations' names, at their areas' names, at their states' names, at their campuses' names. They were self-valued within a time. This will people don't have time to deal with the finite, so they ignored it. Only an individual could deal with the finite. This method measures and maintains roles with kids before they're in third grade. They could discern the communications of our founders being having been other than pretended with passions and emotions by people getting away with it because of how juxtaposed actually the overt criminal enterprises and private ones originally and still are and were manifest. So when you hear people, when you see people using passions and emotions in speaking about the economies in any country, and them grouped, see suits and ties encounters, their shared styles of logic dysfunctions, their uses of criminally foreign influence premises treatments, factual nature, quality aspect nature, as criminal and seditious nature. Slavery and witch trials were slash are examples of how branches of government could be criminally foreign influenced, differentially, but differentially increasingly. Then they had to hide that. Then they put people in, even when they didn't kill the people in a witch trial or whatever. Then they have to hide that after. And they have to defend that. When nature is demonstrating that there was a breaching method, but we know assigned other that was. So we're supposed to respect positive and negative treatments. They have our countries individually grouped in together right through wars. They were using crime methods together, like pretending people make conspiracy theories, pretending democracy means what doesn't. Depending dictatorship means what it doesn't. Only to get away with, only relative to how gotten away with, are identities of convictions and of opinions and of theories that can't defend themselves and afford the short words of a kid in third grade or second grade. And they do this trick. Everyone loves their teachers. They try to make fake exceptions. They also use other teachers that we don't know, and where they use truth for lies. Where how not just investigators. We know one of the things that witch trials, slavery. We know for witch trials is distinct because we know part to an extent it was made up. But we know those sick laws against everyone were not. And we know that how they explain the overt slavery we know about is fake. But they also, how they explain these witch trials is fake. Because that too is about torture and slavery. You know how the World Trade Center attack made self-valued roles with torture and with excuses for people who crafted that legislation also consciously, even though it's not proven in court yet. They've been roles with all sides in cases. Victims and victims advocates still used remotely. It was the same, planted in the same, not just criminally foreign influence, factory, evidence, crimes, roles, methods, natures used, defenses of that. We have to get things on paper. And they've been pretending paper. How they got away with that too is also recorded. So this has been roles with things in all the good and bad things in every town, every location, area, and state, everywhere the species body is standing. So the economic experts have left out how each country was sickly, distinctly forced to take part with economics. And how the difference of that is also, they were hurt for that too, if syntactically using it with logic, which is required to address the breaching method, which instead was and is effectively replaced by the as a human factory, there's a breaching method that simultaneously pretends other. And it is facilitated to means to increasingly get away with it. Per how the breaching method set up means for itself to keep its roles with it with maintenance of everyone blaming it caused in the past. that is still causing things now. It is maintenance to those things blame the other things others themselves. And or that's self-valid when people are defending abridged logic and uses of names. Because now no one knows how to use names. Because nature uses identity other. Nature has us bound individual, grouped simultaneously, and species body of volume slash S. Other than these systems, we are part, forced. We are parts forced individually grouped together, tactical terror. It's not for, in other words, they have people involved with studies, people involved with Jamie Carone, other people with the name Carone from Central Connecticut State University, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. A whole bunch of people directly and indirectly involved with predicate acts, with other natures of organized crime, with those figures associated with that since before they got caught. Also having been roles with all sides of legal cases, civil and criminal, and with victims advocates, and with people in the hallways of the courts, and then again through time, and then again through time. Since I was a kid, they've been stacking fake things in databases, pretending passions. And this is how they get away with it, pretending there's an integrity of science behind any identity of the law voicing clearer than the night and day are only positive together. Fear. What one is forced to mean what it means each. Vaccines for square. But I mean vaccines for circle. Vaccines to get in shape, which is a song by Anthony Wall coming out on the 27th. Boxing song. The guitar man. There's no guitar anymore, man. So of course the solution has to be aware that and how the economic treatments and logic. That's all right if they want to defend that logic and have but we had lawyers. These are we're using as hyper evidential here. We gather. We have hyperpantheism to use, and we're as a species means to afford things and agreements. These are we're going to make temporary positives that make lasting or only increasing in volume progressions. The markets can't do that. Logic next to them and peripheral to it can't defend itself and afford short words and revelation. Black people here. See the means appear not clear. So thank you. So what we do? That's what we do. We admit that mass farming. See, Ukraine is named the breadbasket of nations because mass farming was forced for all the reasons known, but also hyper additionally by a breaching method that employed each of those reasons, good and bad, to keep other things, others, ourselves, blamed for what it caused, which was mass farming, was one of the things it caused. This is a torture method that tactically denatured the suburbs from here to Russia to Ukraine and the world over. Let alone with the, and it made the only and knew that nature would demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures and demonstration of it before the cities were born, before the cities were built. The breaching method was still entrenched. Now one has wrenched. So the human fact, human nature breaching method, not just the human physical bodies natural differences treat and body breaching method, not just the identity names breaching method, not just those three individually grouped together, not just the countries individually grouped together rolls with it, or sensing each other and or the members individually grouped it together from our own countries through ourselves, sensing any individual using truths as that nature of truth capable of being used, that he brings revelations. And then, because they sense it so early, and they start stacking predicate acts roles. That's clear as day. What are witch trials about? And slavery about? Non distinctly. We know they're distinctly about things, about reality distinctly, about American history distinctly, and non distinctly. Non distinctly at the same time, they're about slavery and torture. They're about what the World Trade Center was involved, and is involved with. excuse me, and which also involves them confessing this and pretending not at the same time because of the breaching methods involvements too, and because of how it measures and maintains, and already did that through our own to keep our own measuring and maintaining for it. They're pretending they're lying because they're sensitive to, they're directing the people who read the news to react this way with your face, with aggression, with positive. Because there is maintenance to roles. When there is an identity theft, fraud, slander method against everyone, there are simultaneously strangers with positive treatments, negative treatments, and or name treatments, and styles of logic and syntax and nature, response to everything that can't defend themselves and afford discern, afford use the short words and truths and correlation, capable of being properly, as our founders communicated for us, not to leave out how they had to counter, why they had to counter extort the other founders. That's the breaching method. People even could get away with debating the breaching method, pretending they don't realize what it is. That's because the evidence right there. It's not who remembers what name or what. Black pupils had other pretended as the sciences with passions and emotions behind it. Screening the breaching methods rolls with it, then and still sickly. When people doing it now as victims, but as victim predator, they don't know how to react. So they're going to defend that anyway, how it's shown. I asked you guys many times to respond for this. Because the news attached me and others. They attach everyone in the family. They have the agencies and the interbranch have the right to do things like lie to their family members about others or about reality. And then, but then they're not supposed to attach that formally as faked evidence. They even put arrays of falsified police reports for the same arrest into databases, switching officers' names so no one could go back and find out. As people with New Britain Superior Court involved after the World Trade Center with predicate acts, with names with Hartford courts and New Britain Superior Court at West Hartford locations, Weathersfield locations, with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. Various natures of criminal enterprises, private and overt, foreign and domestic military families, all kinds of families tied to databases, a whole bunch of people tied to like body dumping spots, body dumping spot of a serial killer, body dumping spot confessed and recorded by people associated with the World Trade Center attack and predicate acts since. Also, World Trade Center attack theme, no. Like Enzo Fiennes, also with the spot of Billy Grasso confessions and different narratives with different newspaper articles regarding it. And these are also roles with names near the Hartford Hospital, with the businesses, families, and overt criminal enterprises and private ones. Also next to campuses of public and private schools, with names also used to roles with the interbranch and at the crime scenes, including campuses, including where they don't realize it's a crime scene, because they're attaching everyone to the impositions of having fake sequence involved, fake narratives, fake audio and video transcripts, fake descriptions of instances, buying through the kids and the adults of overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and of the interbranch at the same time kept needing to hide. Also, with much worse, and with conscious uses of insidiousness of logic A through Z, relative to where and to how, effectively self-valued, even though recorded overtly / insidiously in our faces. Others communicating has been communicated for our founders than they asked to be communicated for themselves, such as James Madison, and such as the relativity of this as only increasing value of Marbury versus Madison, wherein how all justice must real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. I'm not a lawyer. I was taught that by a accomplished pro se litigant. Also, one that WFSB recorded, confessed, demonstrated, recorded identity theft, frauds against with the intelligence community next to their location. Also involved with wire crimes with them. Also with people on it with names on it for the World Trade Center and the Ninth Circuit Court next to it, and Connecticut courts that have been stacking sequence shifts into courts. With the people that work with prisons and forensics locations, with their worst patients and criminals before they got caught. As some of the federal criminals were co-defendants of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and who are involved with predicate acts and threats and identity thefts and frauds with names on off the locations next to Fox Connecticut News, pretended legitimate. They have fake pretended legitimate descriptions of my behavior with people tied to a Jim Socha and people with the name Socha, I don't know, who were influenced to roles with the intelligence community, with a Mr. Neville, and people, and with a Leahy family, and people I never saw around middle school, and they tried to make quick fake exceptions with others, wherein how they've been using exception nature, criminally foreign influence. People supposed to be dealing with teaching kids about how programming uses exception nature. Distinctly from this, but non-distinctly too. That's why when we say truths are used for lies, why mandated law is supposed to not be denied. When someone tells you to respond to child abuse, see the interbranch having with their kids too. They have a whole bunch of families with the name O'Neill and tied to the name O'Neill with West Hartford campuses. Further involved with whiting forensics, with child offenders through time since before they got caught, people on the schools. West Hartford schools, there's a O'Neill family. They have their kids with Weathersfield campuses also, with the ones with whiting forensics. Excuse me, a Bob Chase, and people with the Facebook page /S, because then they made a whole bunch of more Facebook pages of New Britain Superior Court, They're also involved with planting evidences on all sides of my house and other people's houses, including kids that had roles with juxtaposed natures of abuses of them consciously. Self-valued per roles uses also consciously of identity ground locations with types of experts to counter types of things with those identity ground locations and the responses and or the non-responses of those also first responders know, because also the phrase first responder is being and have been used criminally for an influence. They have men and women that share the name Bobby, involved with males and females, with the intelligence community, involved interstates with campuses like MIT. Please help MIT. It's nothing personal. UConn, it's nothing personal. You guys have people retired and standing from there. Involved also interbranch and exceptions tied, prisons, overt criminal enterprises with police forms unmarked as collusions with them, with whole methods. What Jim Crow laws are about, or whole predicate acts methods, let alone what slavery is about. Now, who wants to deny that is going to have inherent active and progressive to their quality of fact human nature. What's going to keep them needing to self value, uses of passions and emotions to front while pretending other. Yeah. So, in other words, they're keeping every individual, no matter how, even if it's a leader. That's why, because locations, areas, and states were designed to keep. Only an individual can defend the order of the finite. English was revealed for us here, Legion, here, your name. It parts not from child tribes and exceptions. Where and how it answered the dreams of the other countries before sciences became criminally foreign influence. The ancients understood how we are individual grouped in together. So coming in the next Little Rap Guy and Friends episodes, they have to convince. They have to make. They have to convince the people of China in the cartoon value nature system, and the people of Italy and of America and of the world. They have to keep them convinced that there's an old order of people that remember from our countries and observed how it was and is being exploited, how used remotely, criminally, foreign influence, tactically, delusions, raw are the employments of that original employment of being individual grouped in together, with its syntactically manifest conjunctions / hyperconjunctions, increasingly prevented appreciation offensively. This method knew effectively it could have people self-valuing wars, even though they're in it. They're going to get killed by it, while defending logic tied to other things simultaneously. How easy it is to keep you guys measured and to exploit a little kid. Same way they do it to the group. See, they did this to the teachers since they were kids too, because of criminally foreign influence uses of the campuses individually grouped in together. Because of what is manifest, that is actually discernible, which is inter-campuses and intra-campuses. And it is also that with each campus, individual and grouped. And with so long that has been exploited. This breaching method knew it would entertain. It would have the manifest as it is actually manifest. Fact, human nature, individuals grouped in together of the locations Next to the campuses, note where the sciences are manifest. Next to where database locations are, private. And next to where overt criminal enterprises and private ones are, tied to databases or not, and relative to where and how legalized or not. You can legalize slavery. Nature's going to show you. You're making criminal, you are criminal insidiousness nature of positive treatments. And that positive treatment is a criminal insidious nature of positive. It is not nature that is also positive onto and as its system that reveals means out of nowhere. Evolution's fruits and gifts. Vaccines. I teach you things belong. So, in other words, you know how easy it is for someone to pretend passions and emotions? You know, they have the before people become, the low, it's not just the hierarchy of everything that's completely criminally foreign influence. It's what's coming up through this, having been measured, maintained, this correlation by what is our actual means. So this valued people pretend this valued narrative, this gives truth for lies. Just like we're supposed to hide things about, they leak these ways. When they deny things, cops switch his names and then they deny it and prevent you writing and they deny it, they're lying. They're tactically delusions raw. Now, when they did that with a child abuser, they've been making charges and then they prevent you writing. And with the exceptions, they attach confessions regarding how they also stack switching officers' names and fake arrays of things into databases, spoken, wire crime acts and methods roles. Also, with the phones at the news locations, they attach me and others to fake locations, faked words completely, fake conversations with people themselves and others completely. Others they changed and lied about tied legal cases tied to those people. Where they lie about the people next to everyone too. Where and how they use truth for lies. The right to lie is a phrase used by James Comey, who's recorded involved with sequence shifts in a series of World Trade Center predicate acts and sequence shifts and other wrongdoing roles, where and how it is recorded originally and still wrongdoing sustained was to sustain predicate acts roles, self-value, by worse, where and how those are fact, cheaping nature oriented predicate acts, methods, nature's roles, where and how they got away with pretending passions and emotions about crimes. Those certain type of victim slash hyper victim only allowed to be heard, or that person is sensed. Increasingly with people tied to the ones um, used to tell on people from backgrounds from other classrooms too. Then they try to make fake exceptions. Each of the sciences would use criminally foreign influence. Their fact treatment, in other words, informal statutes and precedents, criminally foreign influence, defenses of logic styles there. It's not debate. Tactically delusions raw simultaneously. And formal. And actual legal formal. Yeah. The means appear. Judge Napolitano's people are lying to them. And are also they are self-valuing. Predicate acts being and having been stacked into databases. Relative to that which is properly recorded into databases, which is also recorded apart with all that too, truths used for lies, because it's way beyond that. This complete possession of all logic expertise of the mind. This is with the lawyers too. All formal and informal readings of statutes and precedents are criminally foreign influence, taxed with delusions raw. This is also recorded when people speak about what Jim Crow laws are about. You leave out what slavery was about. You leave out the human fact, cheap in nature, predicate acts, delivery system method. You leave out the torture method. You leave out denials of it simultaneously. You leave out styles of logic, uses of natural differences being haven't been applied for the programming as a database relationship since before computers to measure and maintain from abroad, used remotely. All these knaves pretending not, all fakes pretending that others are honest or liars, just to keep names tied to others, and all the exceptions too, with the exceptions too, and the interbranch at the same time, with the overt criminalizing prize and foreign. That's what's recorded. That's what our founders left us to demonstrate. You know, that's where they start pretending that their feelings are hurt and stuff like that. Get down, get them onto paper. So Connecticut Interbranch switched names while coaching the news to roles inter-campuses and intra-campuses with predicate acts timed with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, the witness protection program. All those people and things entitled to body dumping spots, increasingly entitled to names with insidious ties to names on off the state judicial branch offices, on off the state corrections offices, noted in the name of that place. Fear God. Make sure you respond for the campuses too. Further, West Hartford campuses and Weathersfield campuses have people with the name O'Neill, I don't know, who are involved with more World Trade Center predicate acts, state police through time, and with a Phil Collo, that a Bob Chase, also with various natures of courts and legal cases as clicks with all sides in legal cases and the victims and the victims advocates with relevant delusions and with relevant evidences crimes in the past. And as the names rolls increasingly on and off intercities campuses with the names that timed rolls of predicate acts on my street, and with the Weathersfield police switching and forging names and making confessions, and with uses of their nature the way it is actually recorded too, the responses to it. They have been pretending that things, instances, they've been making the wrong outcomes in cases because they've been roles with it, with the crime scenes. This is what they've been using WFSB and the names next to it for. A whole bunch of people tied to a police chief Centron, and 1 years before, 1 or more years before him, tied to the same houses, involved with people on the child abuse registry, also recorded involved with predicate acts, planting evidences on campuses, uses of little tricks with corners, timing where people are going to be, people that they don't even know see around. Motivation, fake motivation is planted because these are the ones with the overt criminal enterprises with that are connected between the youngest ages, campuses, and the other ones with people we don't even have classes with. Then they make one little fake exception because they have the people tied to the databases as actually recorded with that. Also with replacing what's actually recorded. Now, Whiting Forensics also has people that confessed and recorded further people involved with the principal child abuser and Phil Cololo and people with the name Christine with them. Also further on the campuses in Weathersfield in the middle school. These are also names next to it and involved with them with the news, still using wire crimes with the, and they have rules with WTNH was influenced to pretend fake emails with the FBI, state police, other agencies, Weathersfield police. They have juxtaposed roles, switching names, confessions tied to the name Scalora, predicate acts roles with child sex offenders, when people involved with identity theft, fraud, planting evidences in Miami and the World Trade Center with the attacking bodies and since. Hartford Hospital has roles with investigators, with the military, people with involved with Cuba, also with psychology with them, and with overt criminal enterprises and private one names like Demoro and Aiello, with locations next to that campus and other campuses, with identity theft, frauds, slanders, criminally foreign influence, wire crime acts and roles, planting sequence shifts, faked evidences, as the roles with the names that planted sequence shift. Post-dated documents were proven after the World Trade Center attack, having been presented to the Ninth Circuit from inside the Ninth Circuit, post-dated to appear late to them, right before the World Trade Center attack. Names with the night before that and years leading up to that made relevant confessions tied to that. Also, where confessions are used a whole bunch of different ways, but also, like for example, where they have complete strangers that don't even know each other, where they have what people communicate and what they say, how it is other, because they have predicate acts methods that involve also the branches of government and how they get away with it. Don't forget, that's what Jim Crow laws were about and still are, because we have other tolls. They left out the breaching method not by accident. They have it replaced. Other pretended, and they're using passions and emotions. Passion and emotions are about the simultaneous slash hyper simultaneous, or so we could discern something being left out, something made up. Fear is righteous here. So it is against the law to pretend not to realize, providing people peaceful means to counter violence of criminal enterprises, plural, and of private ones, and their names and their adults and kids and their families at the same time with the interbranch ones, speaking fake things at the same time with the news so people can't respond anyway. And because of how they attached everyone around me to fake words too. They have predicate acts, criminally foreign influence uses of their customers in various natures of industries associated with the Dillon family that they hid from them, forced them to roll with it. The sale of their home, the sale of the home next to me, they hid what I caught them doing with as roles with names with an untimely death, real or made up. They have roles with other natures of predicate acts, timed uses of that on and off Trinity College with people named Terry and with people I don't know the names of tied to a Joshua Stryker also involved with predicate acts on and off my street names. I never saw my street in my life. Involved with deans, a Dean Alford and a Dean Judd, with people next to their campuses also, with roles with various natures of cases and shootings and the probation officers and the courts having been using that to plant evidences to keep criminally foreign influence uses of their families' roles with names next to the campuses, like Trinity College, like the child campuses next to it, like the medical campus, Hartford Hospital. The year after Hartford Hospital was formed, I mean, the year after, not Hartford Hospital, the year after the Institute of Living was formed on the campus of Hartford Hospital. They changed the name of George Washington College to the Trinity College. And they hid what they were not supposed to hide about the North's roles with slavery then and now. Not just that sickly distinctly against people. For uses of the black pupils, whites of eyes. Deny. Second, you're anyone. Any type of white. So the history of humanity is not where everyone came from Africa. With the history of Italy, more probably, demonstrably, it looks like a cross between Africa and China. The history of humanity is other than was forced, tricked, or persuaded, told, while juxtaposed. Exceptions to that were made, also by the breaching method to screen itself, then and now, knowing that the people now would increasingly be styles of nature, syntax nature, increasingly self-valuing only criminal and serious natures of positive treatments, having been spoken for with passions and emotions, or negative with the as collusions with the negative treatments, and with the differences and the motivations for it, where they are most overtly criminally foreign influence, they bring up their family members into branch. Certain type of victim slash hyper victim, victim predator, hyper predator response, used remotely only capable of pretending to be integrity, relative to where and how they have employed what is smart or wise about kids and about adults, pretended other, and how that's motivated, how they got away with it, because they prevent mandated law, they prevent writing, they prevent peaceful means to counter aggressions, physical poisons, and facts planting, sequence shift planting with the interbranch and foreign at the same time. Fear God, get on paper fast. So West Hartford campuses respond for this because you have a whole child abuse methods recorded, and you have the difference of them pretending passions, emotions by bringing their kids into it and making things up about me and others through their kids. Fear God, they've been attaching my family members to fake conversations about legal cases. Thank God, other was proven in those cases they lied about with the federal criminals in it at the same time. And there were ones that before they were caught, they were planting federal crime rolls on campuses, lies against me and with people in my area involved with wire crimes then and now, distinctly. A Ray Claw and a Tim O'Brien and their families were influenced into roles with wire crimes with since they before with people since before they came to my school when they were in fourth grade. And I never had a class with them. I only saw him around campus one time, and he punched me first. And I punched back, and I never saw him around campus, only in the bus. So I didn't even talk. They were attaching me to fake locations, fake motivations for everything, sequence shifting. People that were protecting. There's a so in other words, they even plan they even have people take picture of me next to Paul Zano. I never had a conversation with him. He's planting evidences with a Mark CM Faglione and a Rick CM Faglione with a Tim O'Brien and a Ray Clow attached me to fake locations with them, fake ties to them, fake natures of ties to them and other people. They have roles with a Bar Hampstead, a lake place with people from Korea, and people and increasingly demonstrate pretending passion and emotion, influenced by their roles there with the people in Weathersfield at locations with them, involved with the streets used in the past by the police forms, describing instances and what caused them as roles of wire crime acts and methods with relative falsified police reports and predicate act stacking methods on campuses in between them that are connected. So there are houses at the of corners on Church Street, and the news also has roles with predicate acts with their sources and stories at corners of streets, like on Church Street and Main Street, with people also at other corners there, with roles with predicate acts on my street in the past and then again in the future, and now increasingly tied to reports of a home break-in at the corner of Carriage Hill and Fairlane Drive, also where privacy is by the police forms in the courts, being coached, pretended. Modern pastry. Also, there's a Mayano family who is involved with the principal child abuser. Then they recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Also, there's people with the name Kalolo that told lies to you about me, tied to that. And I caught more with them when they made a falsified police report about me and replaced what's actually recorded and hid his confessions to me before he was caught. They said it's something to do with I mean, they demonstrated and recorded something to do with their roles with shopping centers and with malls and with the names tied to that. Also, uses of the relativity of if someone hurts animals is recorded involved, for example, with where and how they get away with. Doctors involved with child sex offenders and medicines crimes with judges speaking fake things in records and tactically with delusions since founding. There's a Judge Smith that's associated with ones in Miami and and in New York, who's also involved with CNN and MSNBC sources and Fox News sources, also with worse than war crimes, roles with treatments of Nazis and of wars relative to their roles with drugs and medicines crimes, while physically delusions raw, um, and identity delusions raw, sequence values delusions raw, and criminally foreign influence factor nature qualities, aspects, and natures of convictions and theory, and pretending other uses roles as natures like criminal and citizen natures. I'm not even a lawyer. So CNN has roles with men and women that use the name Bobby. They have an officer Poison, and they have others involved with networks with the police in their databases. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. There's people with the name Kolvinskis, all along Route 175 from Wethersfield to Central Connecticut State University. He's also been attaching me to fake locations, fake ties, fake natures of ties, fake sequence relativity to themselves. He also confirmed, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with sequence shifts with these names of wire crimes when I was in grammar school with the Hartford Police, Wethersfield Police, and mayors increasingly with criminally foreign influence little tricks. Time where someone's going to walk into a room, say something, and then pretend people out of communications, a conversation, as the illusion of one. This is one of the things. We have six things. You have six estimators of judgment that are criminally foreign influence roles with overt criminal enterprises, timed uses of untimely deaths when I was a kid, and then again when I was an adult. The same people between the campuses planting sequence shifts, identity thefts and frauds instances, fake motivations. UConn has roles with Los Solitos themed and with other criminal enterprises themed and private ones, stacking news predicate acts roles with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, families with unions. UPS confirmed this to me, but after I went there to work there, recorded before I went to work there. They have people with the name Oliveri and others on off Covington Street in Debray who have roles with names next to Trinity College in Hartford with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and various natures of federal criminals before they got caught overt criminal enterprises that were planting predicate acts together roles on off campuses. There's a Daryl Sullivan, and people are tied to a Daryl Sullivan and to a Lance Cuddy, recorded through time involved with teachers, also as games that were sticking predicate acts roles with the leaders of the kids too, abused so that for the abuses of others. That's why they bring their kids up in the conversations when they're pretending motivations. Like people with the name O'Neill. I don't know the name O'Neill. I know that they are recorded with wire crimes with Whiting forensics names, with drugs and medicines crimes with them. Also with military police switching and forging names with the interbranch that do that while they're preventing writing, having prevented writing. These are worse than extortion. So these are worse than election crimes. They have Wethersfield town offices involved with this through time. The spots next to it. They have the Wethersfield Community Center through time, spots next to it. Whole bunch of people tied to a Judge Smith and to Smith families in the past. beyond that's one of the ways. Just the name Smith in general, because there's also name switching, but is involved. There are there are neighbors of a John Maiano and his family members also involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, with foreign and domestic, military also, and people next to with spots next to the state capitol involved with sequence shifts, identity planting evidences, have others take pictures for illusion. Where and how they're used remotely too, even the perception though. That's how sick they are. Why they can't answer the question. They have to pretend it's an insult too. That's what it is. When you can't answer the question properly, what are Jim Crow laws about? I don't care if you know all about it. If you deny that it's about a predicate acts delivery system method, you're wrong. Vaccine is strong. The value of studying. They don't care about it with the passions and emotions like you think. From off campuses sustained. We're on off campuses collusions. But the off campuses part, seeming less and seeming for other causes. When not too. That's the worst part. That's the worst part. Forgiveness is not to give up. Forgiveness is not to leave out the smallest finite details. The value of that. Vaccine.